What is your accidentally caught your spouse cheating horror story? Walked in on my girlfriend while she was having sex with another guy. What are you doing here? She says. You gave me a key, remember? I ended up not working today and wanted to surprise you. 15 years later she reaches out, leaves me a message that she'd like to talk. I figure she's doing some 12-step thing or something and wants to make amends. Nope. She wanted to try and sell me on Amway. Came home early. They were fast enough to get dressed, but not in a natural state of being, if that makes sense. It was obvious something was just going down. Very cliched, got walked in on and tried to play it cool, like you see in TV. I asked him to leave, and he did. We argued, she tried to lie, but soon confessed. It wasn't the first time she cheated, but it was the first time that I caught her in the act. Everything in the past was just texts and stuff. She said that she never slept with the other people, and it was just pics and flirting. In retrospect, that may not be BS. We divorced, both remarried. Not friends by any stretch, but civil. Friend of mine was hanging out with some guys at a bar and went home to chill with them. He asked how they knew my girlfriend at the time. Realized she was a mutual friend at the bar. Guy said she was duck buddies with his friend. My friend was confused and mentioned she was the girlfriend of a friend of his, me, to which his response was, "Oh, I hope you're not good enough of friends to have to tell him." Not me, my dad. He told me the story a few years back. So, some of my mom's family were visiting from out of town, and they had planned a night at the bingo, which my dad couldn't attend because he was working 6 PM to 2 AM. He finished work early, and on his way home, saw my babysitter on the street. "You are not with Bassman 1976? No, your wife called me at around 8 PM, saying she wasn't feeling well and that she would stay home." My dad drove home, tried the front door. Locked, no lights. He entered the house by the basement door. Went up the stairs. Heard them, a few feet away. My mom. And her cousin. 2 years later, he almost left her, with me in tow, but stayed so I could have a normal life. Most of the time, I wish he'd left, because he wouldn't have worked 90 to 100 a week to avoid being home, and could have been happier. For those who are wondering, my mom had a long time affair with her cousin, starting before she met my dad. She wasn't happy either, I think, but my dad was a good catch. Yes, I'm sure he is my dad, we look so much the same. Yes, they are still together, and after a year of being angry, I decided to let go, because their relationship has nothing to do with me. Just sad for both of them. Long story short, I suspected something for a few months. Like an idiot, I opened her phone while she was asleep and found exactly what I was looking for, like you always do when searching through someone else's phone. Even with all of the texts right there to see, she still lied about it multiple times. She eventually admitted to it, but downplayed it heavily. She told me about 2 nights ago that he asked her out on a date, and she said, I had to say no, and was visibly sad about it. In the process of getting a divorce now. Hurts like hell. Dating this girl a few years back, and I became really good friends with her brother just because he appreciated my help during a difficult time for their family. Their father had abruptly passed away. 2 years into the relationship, the brother contacts me and asks to meet up for coffee and a serious conversation. Apparently he caught his own sister with another guy, mutual friend of ours, and this shit had been going on for like a year. As soon as he found out, I was told. Broke up with her. Still friends with her brother. Go figure. Came back from a trip 4 hours early. Wife was supposed to be at work still. Opened the front door to see her sitting topless on the couch making out with a coworker. He ran out the door. She ran into a bathroom and locked the door. Sat on that couch for about an hour, because I couldn't think what else to do. Finally just got up and left, so she could come out of the bathroom and put a shirt on. College girlfriend, and we lived together for a year after I realized she would always have her phone on silent or just plain ignore calls from Jennifer. One day I write down the number and call it a week later. It ends up being her other boyfriend who she had never broken up with before she came to college. Neither of us knew about each other, and she had been visiting him when she went home to see her parents on some weekends and breaks. Broke up soon after, and her mom said that sometimes you just have to accept things, and how I owed her an apology for breaking up with her. It gets worse, but that was the gist. Not me, but a medical resident who I met on rotation recently. One of the nicest guy I have met, super intelligent and hardworking, and training to be a trauma surgeon by humble as they come. He had been married for 2 years to his wife. One night he gets off a 30-hour call early and heads home to surprise his wife with some flowers and her favorite dessert. It was the anniversary of the day they first met. Only to find her in bed with a random dude. He was so exhausted and confused, he didn't know what to do, and just left and went back to the hospital. I saw him at 5 AM, sitting in the parking lot, hunched over crying. He didn't even have his phone with him, he was just sitting there. Man, nothing breaks your heart more than seeing a grown man cry. It's not something you see often. We called his dad up, and he came and picked him up. The guy ended up taking a leave from his residency. Turns out, it wasn't the wife's first time sleeping around. Hope he gets back on his feet. He will make an amazing physician. Had been on the road for work. Was supposed to be 10 days. Got to go home a day early. Had a friend pick me up at the airport to surprise my wife and 2 children, 2 years and 8 months. Walked into my ex and her coffee friend snuggling on the couch. With my kids in the same room. I was livid. Of course she denied everything. We split up weeks later. Edit, added years after to avoid all the age questions. 2 weeks ago, I sent a message to a mutual friend asking to borrow a router. He didn't answer, but no worries, he lives nearby. I'll just stop by and grab it. I pull up to his house and start heading down the driveway. He has a long country driveway, so it's a few seconds before I see my car. I drive a company vehicle during the day, already there. My heart began to sink, but they are friends and business partners. Maybe it's nothing. I got out of my van and look up to see the other guy shirtless in his bedroom. At this point my heart is down on my stomach and I am visibly shaking. I go in and immediately head upstairs. He is alone, now clothed. I say, I came to borrow the router. Also, have you seen my wife? The car is here. He then proceeds to give the worst improv I've ever heard. Huh? No, she was here at some point though. Whatever, I knew she was there. I just wanted him to admit it. I go down, take the router, and head back to the van where I finally encounter my wife topless trying to sneak around the side of his house. And now here I am. Edit, to all those wondering, I kept the router. Edit 2, it's a plunger router forward working. I was at Disney, with our kids, day 2 of a 7-day family trip her father had been, by that point, talking up for about 7 years. He and her mother told us when the kids were born, they were going to take us all to Disney when they turned 7. And 7 years later, it finally happened. At that point, we'd been together for over a decade. Had a great job, a house, bunch of kids, and the full-on, 100%, honest to goodness American dream. Life was grand, until I picked up her phone to set an alarm on night 2 of our family vacation of a lifetime. There were so many texts. So many. I remember actually wanting to hurt her, and having to leave the room. I immediately called the number and heard some ducking strange dude answer with a sleepy, "Hello darling. I'm glad to hear from you." I wanted to die. The sense of unreality that I experienced. It was immediately numbing. Like I'd just switched to the dark timeline. All I could think was, from this point on, everything that I have known about my life is going to change. Mount St. Augustine erupted in Alaska in 1986. They had to evacuate all planes out of Elmond or Fair Force Base due to ash in the air. This sent my unit home from Korea 3 days early. I got home at 2 AM, and there was a guy sleeping next to my wife in our bed. I caught my ex thanks to ducking Pokemon Go of all things. She mentioned Pokemon Go was using lots of her data. I explained that in her settings she could see how much data an app was using. I proceeded to show her, and prove to her it wasn't by pointing out Tinder was using much more data. It was sad but also funny the way it went down. I've posted this before, but it's still funny to remember.